A late reply, a like, a small compliment, a sudden "I miss you." Just enough to keep you waiting, not enough to make you secure. That is the danger of breadcrumbs. They do not feed you. They only stop you from leaving. And the most confusing part is, it does not always look cruel. Sometimes it looks sweet. Sometimes it looks romantic. Sometimes it arrives exactly when you were about to move on. One small message, one small sign, one small moment of attention. And suddenly, your mind starts building a whole story. Maybe they still care. Maybe they are just busy. Maybe this time will be different. But here is the truth. Consistent interest does not feel like confusion. Consistent respect does not feel like waiting. Consistent love does not feel like guessing. Today, we decode breadcrumbing. Why it works. Why small attention keeps you emotionally attached. And the response code that brings your power back. Read patterns, not signals. Welcome to the response code, where we decode the psychology behind reactions, silence, pressure, and power. Today's code is not about chasing. It is not about proving. It is not about begging someone to be consistent. It is about seeing clearly. Because when you stop reading tiny signals and start reading repeated patterns, you stop being controlled by crumbs. What breadcrumbing really is, breadcrumbing is when someone gives you small pieces of attention, just enough to keep you emotionally invested, but not enough to create real security. They do not fully choose you. But they do not fully release you either. They stay close enough to be remembered, and distant enough to avoid responsibility. It can happen in dating, friendship, work, family, even business. Someone gives you a little hope, a little praise, a little access, a little attention, then disappears again. And because the attention is inconsistent, it becomes more powerful. Your mind starts waiting for the next reward, the next reply, the next sign, the next moment where they feel warm again. This is why breadcrumbing can feel addictive, not because the person gives you so much, but because they give you so little at unpredictable times. And unpredictable attention is one of the strongest hooks in human psychology. If someone is always absent, you may eventually leave. If someone is always present, you feel secure. But if someone appears and disappears, your nervous system stays alert. You do not relax. You scan, you wait, you check, you interpret, you hope. And slowly, you become attached not to the person, but to the possibility. The emotional trap breadcrumbing works because it makes you chase meaning. A simple "hey" becomes a question. Why now? What does it mean? Did they miss me? Are they coming back? A small compliment becomes evidence. A viewed story becomes a signal. A late-night message becomes a possibility. But here is where power is lost. You start treating small attention as proof of deep intention. You start collecting tiny signs because you are hungry for clarity. But signals are not commitment. Attention is not consistency. Chemistry is not respect. And a message is not a plan. Breadcrumbing keeps you stuck between hope and reality. Reality says they are not consistent. Hope says, but they still come back. Reality says they do not make you feel secure. Hope says, but maybe they are afraid. Reality says they are not showing up. Hope says, but maybe this time they will. And when hope becomes louder than evidence, you become easy to control, not because you are weak, but because you are emotionally invested in a version of the story that has not been proven. Imagine this. You send a message. They do not reply. Hours pass. Then a day. You feel yourself becoming irritated, then worried, then embarrassed that you care. You tell yourself, I will not check again, but you check. Then suddenly, they reply. Sorry, been busy. No explanation, no warmth, no real effort. But your body relaxes. The anxiety drops. The tension disappears. And because relief feels so good, you confuse relief with connection. This is important. Sometimes you do not feel happy because they treated you well. You feel happy because the anxiety stopped. That is not love. That is nervous system relief. Then the cycle starts again. They disappear. You wait. They return. You feel relieved. They disappear again. And each time they come back, the attachment becomes stronger because your brain starts connecting their attention with emotional relief. This is how crumbs become powerful. They do not give you peace. They give you temporary relief from the pain they created. Imagine you finally decide to move on. You stop messaging. You stop checking. You start feeling calm again. Then suddenly, they like your story, or react to your post, or send one small emoji. Nothing clear, nothing serious, nothing accountable, but enough to reopen the door in your mind. You start thinking, why did they do that? Are they thinking about me? Do they want me to message? This is the hook. Breadcrumbing does not always come as direct communication. Sometimes it comes as visibility. They want to remind you they exist. They want to see if they still have access. They want to test whether one small action can pull your attention back. And if you respond immediately, they learn something. They learn that they do not need consistency to keep access to you. They only need a crumb. This is why the response code matters. Do not read the like, read the pattern. Did they communicate clearly? Did they show consistent respect? Did they make real effort? Did they create security? If not, then the like is not a signal. It is a crumb. Breadcrumbing often appears after distance. When you start becoming quiet, they become sweet. When you stop chasing, they say, I miss you. You crossed my mind. You are different. I hope you are okay. And because the message touches emotion, you forget the pattern. You forget the waiting, the confusion, the inconsistency, the times you had to act like you did not care, the nights your mind stayed busy because their actions were unclear. One beautiful message can make you forget a month of poor behavior. That is why you must be careful. Words can create emotion quickly. Patterns reveal truth slowly. A person can send a sweet message in 10 seconds. But consistency requires character. Consistency requires discipline. Consistency requires respect. So when the sweet message arrives, pause. Do not ask, how does this message make me feel? Ask, does this message match their pattern? Because a sweet message from an inconsistent person is not always love. Sometimes it is maintenance. They are maintaining access, maintaining hope, maintaining emotional control, without giving real commitment. Why you stay attached now, let's talk about you. Why does breadcrumbing keep a smart person attached? Because it activates 3 things: memory, hope, and unfinished business. Memory says, but the beginning was so good. Hope says, maybe they will become that person again. Unfinished business says, I need to understand why they changed. This is where many people get trapped. They are not attached to what is happening now. They are attached to what happened before. The first conversations, the attention, the compliments, the feeling of being chosen, the version of the person that appeared in the beginning. And now every small crumb feels like proof that the old version still exists. But sometimes the beginning was not the truth. Sometimes the beginning was the hook. The pattern is the truth. How they behave after they know you care, that is the truth. How they communicate when there is conflict, that is the truth. How they act when you stop chasing, that is the truth. Do not judge people only by how they enter. Judge them by how they remain. Breadcrumbing is not always evil now. To be clear, Not every inconsistent person is evil. Some people are confused. Some are emotionally immature. Some want attention but not responsibility. Some like you but not enough to show up properly. Some are lonely. Some are bored. Some enjoy being wanted. Some do not even realize the effect they have. But here is the important part. The reason does not change the impact. Whether they do it on purpose or not, you are still left waiting. You are still left guessing. You are still left lowering your standards for small attention. And that is where you must wake up. You do not need to hate them. You do not need to expose them. You do not need to win. You only need to stop feeding the pattern. Because sometimes the most powerful response is not anger. It is withdrawal from the cycle, quietly, clearly, completely. So, what is the response code? Read patterns, not signals. A signal is one message. Pattern is repeated behavior. A signal is one compliment. A pattern is how they treat you over time. A signal is one apology. A pattern is whether they change. A signal is one late night, I miss you. A pattern is whether they show up in the daylight with respect. When you read signals, you become emotional. When you read patterns, you become powerful. So before you reply to the crumb, ask yourself, have they been consistent? Have they been clear? Have they respected my time? Have they made me feel secure? Have their actions matched their words? If the answer is no, then do not let one small message erase the whole pattern. You can respond calmly. You can say, I need consistency, not occasional attention. Or, I'm not interested in unclear communication. Or, I wish you well, but this pattern does not work for me. No drama, no essay, no emotional performance, just clarity. Because the goal is not to punish them. The goal is to protect your peace. The power shift the moment you stop reacting to crumbs. The power shifts. Not because you become cold, but because you become unavailable for confusion. You stop treating every small sign as a doorway. You stop making excuses for inconsistency. Stop accepting emotional discounts. You stop saying, at least they replied. At least they liked my post. At least they remembered me. No, you are not looking for at least. You are looking for respect. You are looking for clarity. You are looking for consistency. You are looking for emotional maturity. And when you finally understand this, a breadcrumb no longer feels exciting. It feels small. Too small for the version of you that is healing. Too small for the version of you that knows your value. Too small for the life you are building. That is when you stop starving for crumbs and start choosing places where you are fully welcomed. Remember this. A late reply is not a relationship. A like is not effort. A compliment is not commitment. A miss you is not a plan, and attention without consistency is not security. Breadcrumbing keeps you attached by making small things feel meaningful. But your power returns when you stop asking, what does this signal mean? And start asking, what does this pattern show? That is the code. Read patterns, not signals. Because the person who wants to be present will not keep you surviving on crumbs, and the person who respects you will not make you beg for clarity. If this episode gave you clarity, subscribe to the response code. Because the next time someone gives you just enough attention to keep you waiting, you will not chase the crumb. You will read the pattern. And choose yourself.